Okay, today I have to confess to you that I no longer have a choice but to commit heresy. So while this might discomfit many of you, at least I probably won't bore you, so there's hope. There aren't many ideas in the Unitarian context that can constitute a heresy. If there's no official doctrine, no dogma, there can be no heresy. At least not officially, anyway. But when we come to speak of things like God, or the soul, or the possibility of an afterlife, it can become obvious that unspoken or unwritten rules, even amongst Unitarians, are often more powerful in that they're not expressed. He who speaks of such things with a straight face can find himself, even at a Unitarian church, speaking of God or the soul or an afterlife, swiftly confined to the large file marked nut job if we don't see an agenda, or charlatan if we do see an agenda. We are a skeptical bunch by tradition and perhaps by nature, and that's a good thing, generally. The late and much missed Kurt Vonnegut Jr., writer and Unitarian, said that if the Unitarians were ever to devise a logo, it should contain a sausage within a red circle with a slash going through it with the legend, "No baloney." No baloney. We pride ourselves on not being deluded and in not fooling others with things that just, well, aren't so. We tend as a religion to confine ourselves to the known, or at least to the knowable, and we try and avoid the unknown and the unknowable, even though the unknown and the unknowable is arguably the larger sphere. And so as a religion, we have an epistemological tendency, a preferred way of knowing that privileges sensory data and therefore sensory knowledge about the world. What we can sense is what we regard as reliable truth. But as I've mentioned in previous sermons, this reliance on sensory information presents its own problems because there's a lot of sensory information out there that we can't sense. Ultraviolet light, magnetic fields, gravity, sounds or frequencies outside a certain range specific to human hearing. Now we know these things are out there because we've developed media, extensions of our senses to reach what was previously unseeable and unknowable. Think of a microscope, think of a telescope. There again, we're relying on our extended senses not to be duped about the way things are. If you can't show me, I ain't buying, we say. The problem is, this leads inevitably to an entirely material view of the world, which impoverishes us when it comes to things like meaning. After all, questions of value, moral or aesthetic value, refer to things which are not seeable. And so, in the course of human history, humans developed logic, an internally consistent way of making statements that demonstrate what must be true even if we can't see it. Here's an example from one of Thomas Aquinas' large inventories. God is that which is beyond human imagination. Humans can't imagine God, therefore God must exist. QED. Neat, huh? Logic is a kind of night vision of deducing what must be out there and so prevent us from falling victim to error, free from baloney and free from being duped. But hey, not so fast, I hear you think. Not must be out there, may be out there. And I'm not buying what I can't see. I will not be duped. Pretty much this has been my way of thinking most of my life, skeptical, and therefore closed to what may be beyond the known. Is there a God? Well, probably not. Absence of evidence. Is there a soul? Probably not. Absence of evidence. Is there a life after this one? Probably not. Absence of evidence. And yes, the burden of proof should be on those who urge us to believe in something that we can't see or figure out. Absence of evidence. The shrugging default position of the reflexive gainsayer, like somebody was trying to sell you Florida real estate or shares in marginal investments or a surefire way to get rid of flab forever. These industries boom, by the way. People buy snake oil every day, but we're not having any of that God, soul, next life stuff. We're too smart for that. Absence of evidence. The battle cry of the absolutely general skeptic, now that I think of it, is at its core an indication of a psychology locked in adolescence. Why do I say that? Adolescence fears, above all, embarrassment. Fear of being humiliated by being duped. The philosopher Santayana says, skepticism is the chastity of the intellect. And it is shameful to surrender it too soon or to the first comer. There is nobility in preserving it coolly and proudly through a long youth until at last, in the ripeness of instinct and discretion, it can be safely exchanged for fidelity and happiness. As I never tire of saying, absence of evidence is not, repeat, not evidence that there's absence. The indisputability of this simple idea may leave open the doors that one day, something may, not will, but may, walk on through. Or you could just sit in fear of being humiliated and duped, and so keep yourself chaste and closed, so you choose. Now, my own ambivalence around this issue was recently driven home when I found myself surrounded at an event by a swarm of what I took to be, and what most of you would probably take to be, dingbats and charlatans. A Kiwi who went off to India years ago to become a Swami, and who now looks like the Maharishi instead of a Kiwi teacher. A former dancer who's now a Zen Rama something. And a couple of mediums. Mediums. One of whom was rather well known, as it turns out. I didn't know this. And he claims to have seen the Twin Towers falling in the death of Princess Diana like decades ago when he was 8. And, most amusingly for me, a self-appointed ambassador for peace who says she just kept reporting having out-of-body experiences throughout the event. I mean, I didn't see it, but she said it happened. And me, marginally official representative of an even more marginal and notoriously skeptical religion. The less famous of the two mediums was a very nice and unassuming woman who was scheduled to work the room and make contact with the deceased for those assembled. I tried like hell not to be ungracious, but I wanted this nonsense exposed for what it was. I have always regarded mediums, clairvoyants, and the like with great disdain. So this meek woman, she's working the crowd. She says she's sensing a man close to someone on my side of the room to whom the number 19 is important. Now please understand, folks, I am aware of the tricks that are used by these people. I have seen and read about them being debunked. And the notion of someone pretending to special mystical knowledge of the unseen world gets me brow-clutchingly crazy and raises my lapsed Catholic hackles so far up my neck that I look like I've stuck my finger in a light socket. So I am in this place, and I resolve to undo this nonsense by laying a trap for her. I play along by working out some connection between my late father and the number 19. Well, I say, my late father was born in 1919, and my favorite photo of him was taken when he was 19. It's next to my bed. And so she says, she gets the sense that his death was drawn out, two-staged, and involved a bowel complaint.